Lore of the Old World, Chapter 9, Lords of Ulthuan. Haughty and proud, the High Elves rule over the vast island continent of Ulthuan. Steeped in ancient magics and possessed of unsurpassed martial skills, their prowess is such that no single enemy has ever truly defeated them. Beyond their borders, their elegant fleets rule the high seas, carrying the armies of Ulthuan to every corner of the world. First among the races the Old Ones created were the Elves, called Asur in their own tongue. To provide a home for these peoples, the Old Ones made a kingdom for the Elves, raising the Isle of Ulthuan up from the ocean floor. Here the Elves would prosper, producing wondrous art and mastering the primal energy known as magic. But the passage of time was not kind to the Elves. When the polar gates collapsed and the raw stuff of chaos flooded the world, Ulthuan was beset by monstrous fiends and demonic entities. Yet the Elves rose to meet this almost overwhelming challenge. As the tide of chaos crashed upon the shores of Ulthuan, the Elves stood firm in the defense of their realm. Led by the first and mightiest of the Phoenix Kings, Anarion, and protected by the potent magic of their mages, the Elves halted, then turned back the legions of chaos. Despite the blood and sacrifice, this victory over chaos was the greatest achievement of the elf race. But it was tainted victory. For in order to achieve it, Anarion raised the Sword of Cain, bringing the curse of madness upon himself and his descendants. Furthermore, their great victory fed the vanity and ego of the elves, who since then have considered themselves preeminent amongst all of the races of the world. The history of the Asur since that time has been one of almost constant battle and warfare. Many of these wars have been valiant and noble, for the High Elves have always been the mightiest opponent of the ruinous powers, but almost as many have been brought about by pride and arrogance. Most insidious of these were the civil wars that divided their people into those who adhered to the old ways and those who have embraced cruel new masters, an ongoing struggle that has raged for thousands of years and consumed countless legions across history. These wars have forged a race very different to the mystics and scholars known to the Old Ones. Although the High Elves are still the supreme exponents of the magical arts, their armies have become the most professional and disciplined of all in this new age of war. All citizens of Ulthuan are taught how to use weapons from an early age. It is said that High Elves learn to shoot a bow before they can read, and to wield a sword before they can write. The skills learned as youths mean that the High Elves are expert warriors by the time they reach maturity. This multitude of deadly fighters, an entire race honed for war, forms the backbone of Ulthuan's mighty armies. Equipped with finely wrought armor, armed with bow or spear and shield, the glittering hosts of Ulthuan are possessed of preternatural deadliness. Yet for all their prowess, these citizen soldiers are but the rank and file of a High Elf army. More elite warriors exist in the form of the famous Silver Helms, the noble Elven knights who fight in the vanguard of every High Elf army, the graceful Reaver cavalry that guard the shores of Elarion, and the famed dragon princes of Caledor, descendants of those who rode drakes to battle in ages past. Riding alongside these cavalry formations are charioteers from Tiranoc and Thrace, the later drawn not by elven steeds, but by the ferocious white lions that prowl the mountains of that mystical realm. These are matched both in valor and skill by elite infantry, the ever-silent Phoenix Guard, granted visions of their own demise by Asurion himself, the supremely skilled swordmasters of Hoeth, who strike as swift as lightning with the two-handed swords with which they endlessly hone their martial form, the white lions of Thrace, every bit as ferocious as their namesakes, wield elegantly curved axes that can hew necks as easily as the birches of their homelands. And above each High Elf war host soar the huge, majestic dragons that have accompanied the High Elves to battle since the time of the Great Cataclysm. It is even said that in recent years the eldest of drakes have been roused from their slumbers by the clamour of war. The armies of Ulthuan are led to battle by the greatest heroes of the age. The general of a High Elf army will have studied the art of war from infancy, committing to memory the countless essays and treatises laid down by the greatest High Elf commanders that came before them. These works, written by the likes of Caledor I and Bel Corhadris, mean that a High Elf general can call upon a store of military wisdom undreamt of by those who would command the armies of their enemies. Furthermore, the military acumen of each elven officer will be bolstered by the spell lore and magical abilities of the finest mages. Even the youngest and most hot-blooded dragon mages can summon a storm of pyrotechnics. With such capable mages among their ranks, the armies of Ulthuan have little to fear from the primitive magic of their enemies. It is this combination of skilled troops, expert leadership, and consummate sorcery that makes a High Elf army such a deadly force. With these finely honed war hosts, the High Elves impose their will upon all corners of the world, be they on land or sea, for their fleets are unmatched in speed and power. Arrogant and prideful, supremely confident and skilled in all the manifold arts of war, the High Elves have no compunction about using unstoppable force to achieve their ends. They know it is their destiny to shape the fate of the world, and woe betide any that stand in their way. Though time and the ascension of the younger races may have worn away at the might of the High Elven Empire, theirs remains one of the most widely spread races in the world. Elven colonies, once numerous in the lands of the Empire, Britannia, and Greater Old World, now cling to coastal regions, where they stand as trade hubs and diplomatic outposts connecting the court of the Phoenix King to kings, emperors, and lords from the shores of Araby to the wilds of the Southlands. In turn, many of the younger races, though distrustful of the High Elves, rely upon their fleets to keep the oceans and seas of the Warhammer world safe for trade, there being no shortage of pirates, monsters, and even darker things lurking both above and below the waves. Even further afield, High Elf ports guard the great ocean tradeways of the Warhammer world. Beyond the churning gulf, the Fortress of Dawn guards the straits between the Southlands and the southern wastes, while the Tower of the Sun and the Tower of the Stars ward the entrance to the Sea of Dread. In the distant east, even more towers, fortresses, and ports connect Ulthuan to far-off kingdoms such as Ind, Nippon, and Great Cathay. In this way, the High Elves maintain an unbroken chain of safe harbours for their ships from one end of the world to the other, as well as a presence in the courts of almost every great ruler in the world. As the power of chaos once again waxes strong, and the armies of the dark gods gather in the north, the High Elves find themselves preparing to face their ancient foe. As custodians of the world, and at least in their own eyes the inheritors of its defence, the armies of the High Elves are once more on the move. Though some among their kind feel it is time for the younger races to stand on their own, there is little faith among the elves that man is able to hold back the might of the dark gods. Many, in fact, blame the rise of chaos over the millennia upon humanity, believing they too easily fall under the sway of chaos, ultimately filling out the ranks of their enemies with corrupted warriors and murderous madmen. To this end, elven envoys have begun to appear across the old world, lending their knowledge and guidance to mortal rulers. It is the hope of a small number of these envoys that the divided nations of man might be forged into a force to stem the tide of chaos, lest it sweep across the lands and isolate the elves upon their distant island nation. At the same time, the elven navy grows in strength, just as the magical defences of Ulthuan are increased, for any blow from chaos that lands upon the old world will inevitably attempt to find its way to the Mystic Isles shores.